Linux Out Loud is firing up our mics, connecting those headphones as we prepare to get rowdy. I'm Nate, and I'm joined by my lovely fellow co-hosts, Matt and Wendy. We're three sort of friends sitting around a virtual sort of table and talking Linux, open source, tech, gaming, and everything in between. We keep the banter friendly, the conversation somewhat on topic, and we have fun doing it. This week, we are spotting off about our weekly nonsense, or bi-weekly nonsense, I guess, in this case. So let's get into episode 98. Well, Matt, I know you've been teasing me throughout the week, in the way that you do, in kind of a fun, plucky sort of way. But the exciting thing you told me about that I was really excited about to hear was Ubuntu Touch as a daily driver. You really made this happen. And I got to know more about this because this is super exciting, dude. Can I say dude?
So,
am I told to say dude now? Dude. I don't know.
Nate, you're like that meme of Steve Buscemi with the skateboard and,
hey, fellow children, or whatever.
Exactly. You're him. Anyway,
basically.
So those that don't know, this is the Fairphone 4. I picked this up specifically for Ubuntu Touch. This is the whole point and purpose, best supported phone, best specs for the phone, for the OS, et cetera, et cetera. So actually getting Ubuntu Touch on here through the installer, that part, super simple. Unlocking the bootloader, they need to clean up a few things about how that process goes. Because while the documentation on Fairphone tells you how to unlock the bootloader on the phone, it fails to mention the stuff that you need to do from ADB in order to do it. So therefore, you need to go through the command line to do it. That way, when you boot up your phone,
is, I've never seen a device, period, where you didn't need to use ADB to unlock the device. So for them to not have that in the instructions is a little bit weird there. So where did you end up needing to find that information?
So I ended up actually, great forum would be XDA, as anybody who does root and ROM and all the other stuff. There's a specific forum thread that is linked in the show notes that is about the Fairphone for unlocking the bootloader officially. So once you get that done, that is the part that I was more concerned about, was getting the OS actually onto the phone, saying bye-bye to Android.
If I may ask, though, I thought the Fairphone 4 was very open and you could do whatever you want with it. So why is that not the case?
I mean, it is in general, but even when the Google Nexus devices were out there, like a major root and ROM device, you still needed to use ADB to send the commands to the phone to unlock the bootloader.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. All right.
Right.
I was thinking you had to do some sort of like cheetah flips to try and get the bootloader unlocked, but no, just the standard ADB way of unlocking the bootloader.
So the way Android works now, and I'm not sure if anybody's going to be able to see this, but this pops up now as your default when you unlock the bootloader, basically telling you your device isn't secure. It's basically secure boot on your phone. Super annoying. With that being said, once that was all done, I downloaded the UbiPorts, Ubuntu Touch, whatever you want to call it, the installer for it. One thing, you plug this in, it recognizes it right off as the Fairphone 4 in the installer once you get it running. And it's like, hey, what do you want to use? Do you want to use Ubuntu Touch? Or it actually gives you the option of post-market OS.
Oh.
So for those for anything that's a supported phone. Now, this is not going to be a pure Linux-y, like what we expect from Linux kind of phone or experience. This is going to be more, it relies on a lot of the Helm stuff for the drivers and, kind of that overlayered Android support stuff in the base and just for a hardware support level. But once that's done, the performance is fantastic. The interface is very quick and smooth, and it's a miracle what Ubuntu Touch can look like on a phone that actually has support. So I tried this in two different fashions. I tried this without G-app support because there is Waydroid cooked into Ubuntu Touch. You can activate Waydroid, but you have to do it through the console/terminal on the phone in order to activate that. I'm not going to get into all that stuff. It's there. You're able to do it. The apps for Android integrate as their own containerized apps, essentially, or you can have an overall arcing kind of lineage running on top of Ubuntu OS or Ubuntu Touch. So then all you would do is you'd slide over it and it would be running as its own window. But you could have insert application here running. The Android apps actually go into the application launcher on Ubuntu Touch. So if you want just a specific app that's Android, you click on it, it fires up the Android container and runs the app. There you go. If you're multitasking and try to flip through them, it automatically goes and switches through it. Anyway, all that being said, cool, awesome support. That's what I wanted. Few steps that, it's very DIY still as far as the steps and all that jazz to get to the end result. You can make phone calls, you can text, it supports 5G or whatever version of 5G it currently is, 4G and a half or whatever. Anyway, the camera, ironically, unlike a lot of the other Linux phones, the cameras work.
That's good.
Well, that's nice.
Yes.
You can record video. You can record. You can shoot photos. They're decent. They don't have like a lot of the Android-y kind of stuff, but I did try one thing, which was I tried the Android camera app as the container app for the cameras on here. It still recognized the cameras, so that was interesting. I was nice. Like, because sometimes it's a permissions thing and all that stuff. So I was curious to see about that. So that did work. All that being said, I did have one major issue, and this is going to be a make or break for a lot of people. And it's an issue across every Ubuntu Touch phone, not just this phone, because I specifically looked at all the supported other devices.
Mm-hmm.
Assisted GPS does not work. There is no AGPS. Now, I don't know if it's a binary issue. I don't know. There's GPS, but that quick lock on that we would normally get from something like Android or iOS or all that kind of stuff is not there. Like, it is not there at all. Like, if you plug in, say, an address.
Kind of bad.
Right, yeah.
So this is
how would you play Pokemon Go?
I mean, never mind. I'm not going to go there. So that is the biggest downfall that I've seen with this. I can get over the couple. No GPS, because there are specific apps that I do need for the GPS, and those. There are other workarounds I can deal with if I'm just looking specifically for native apps. There's UNAV, like there's Discord works within the Morph browser by itself. My bank app web page works within the browser by itself. So that stuff can stay open. You still get Discord notifications, all that stuff. All that's great. But no GPS at all, even with native apps. Doesn't matter if you're running Google Maps through Waydroid, or if you're doing it with the UNAV, or I think the other one's Pure Maps, if I remember correctly. But that's a stomp for a lot of people, and I can't really say I blame them. So I don't know what causes that. I don't know if it's a hardware issue, software issue, whatever. But if these are going to be really viable options, because it's like 99% there. But the 1% that it really needs is the one that a lot of people are going to care about.
And my guess wouldn't be hardware issue. It would be somewhere in software. And I only say that because you have things like Lineage where that isn't an issue. But they are basing it off Android.
Yeah, I was going to ask then, is there any performance penalties with the other, like with Android in a container? Did you see notice any performance penalties for running it in a container versus running it natively? Do you have like a side by side? Like, does it feel like it drags a little bit, or not really?
So what I will say, as far as what you're asking, Nate, is the launch speed is going to be the biggest thing because it's firing up basically every iteration. Every time you run a separate Android app, it's a new iteration of Waydroid.
Okay.
Oh,
You can. There's two different ways to look at this. You can fire up Waydroid by itself, which therefore overlays Lineage on top of Ubuntu Touch as its running container,
Okay.
and then run
Okay.
apps in that direction. The boot up, regardless, is about the same if it's by app or if it's by just general Waydroid.
So what does that do to your RAM?
So I really, honestly, you don't really feel it. And
Okay.
again, some of that could be phone, because this is the best spec phone that you can get as far as Ubuntu Touch specifically. But there are other issues with it besides that, but those are really the major ones. Like right now, this is
Okay.
booting up the Lineage. So like this is the typical boot up process for one app. This is for the Google Play Store. Boots up Android because there you go. But
Okay.
once it's loaded,
So you're
once
not
it's loaded,
doing anything speedy.
so here's the difference though. Once it's loaded,
It runs fine. Yeah.
it runs fine. It's just the initial boot on some of that stuff is I know a lot of people care about like initial boot speed of stuff and blah, blah, blah. I generically don't care because what I generally do is I just leave them running anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
See, and I don't. I am one of those people that like closes all of my apps on a regular basis. My husband, on the other hand, leaves everything he opens like opens. So
Yeah.
I go to like do something on his phone or whatever, and I'm like, holy crap, there's an explosion of apps open. So for him, that wouldn't be a problem. For me, it would be because I regularly close everything.
So like this is my Android phone. So there's really no difference in how I do apps.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So it depends on how you're using the device. So for me and how I typically use it, that might become a problem. But how you or my husband uses it, then you wouldn't notice as much, I guess.
Yeah, so that's the biggest thing. So like I closed the Google Play Store, but it's still running the Waydroid container.
Okay.
Like you can jump into the Waydroid container and you got your menus and everything else you want to use there if you want. So like there's ways around it. I will say it is a ton better solution than what you got with BlackBerry when they tried doing Android apps.
Okay.
So the experience, having used that experience versus this experience, I will take this experience all day over the BlackBerry experience.
See, and I never used BlackBerry at all. Like I thought about it, but I never actually used one, so I don't have personal experience with that. I have used several different ROMs on phones, but yeah, I can't say.
The biggest thing I will say is if you're coming from Android or iOS, the gesture system is going to take some getting used to on how you handle gesture,
It's very
navigating
different
the OS.
than. Okay.
Well, it's like, so this is like, that's your multitasking, but within multitasking, you also bring up the app menu and then go through that direction too. So, and like options are from the bottom up. So instead of being like an Android where it's a slide down on the shade to bring up all your options for the app, it's done from the bottom up. The one thing I do like is actually the system settings kind of tray, because you can do like a peak animation where you just slide down some of it and then just bring it over to wherever you're looking to go. So there's little touches that are nice. But overall, it's the most fully functional Linux OS currently that is available for a phone. So take that for what you will.
I mean, I think it sounds cool. I mean, I've used Ubuntu Touch on my Pine phone, and I thought it to be very intuitive, the interface. So you just have to understand how it does things, but once you understand, it's actually quite nice and reminds me a little bit of WebOS back in the day, a little bit, like a little flavor of it. Not saying it's exactly like it. Of course it's not. But and so I think it's great to hear that that's a good experience for you. They can't work out that GPS thing. Do you know what the actual hang up is?
I have no idea. I just did a kind of a quick glance at a lot of their support, like officially supported devices from the installer, and it seemed to be a global issue across, because even their most fully supported phone, which I think is the Google Pixel 3a, if I remember correctly, it's an issue on there as well. So I'm just like, so it's an issue within the overall OS in some way, shape, or form. From could be hardware drivers, could be software in and of itself. Who knows? But
got it. Okay.
But overall, if you need a basic phone or a DIY solution, and GPS is not it's functional. It just takes forever to function on the initial like targeting about stuff.
Right. But if you're like me and I'm like, oh crap, I need to look this up, and then you're like, yeah.
So that's I would say this is a good device to get going on if you want to dip your toe into like the Linux Ubuntu phone realm, because it's going to be your lowest barrier to entry. Gotcha. Price can be a little steep, not gonna lie. I mean, I paid about $330 for the poke around at Ubuntu Touch, so like didn't exactly pay a small price.
Well, I mean, it's not awful, really.
No, it's not for the spec of the phone and what you can do with the phone. No, because like I can nuke and pave it and put Android back on it and have a fully functional phone.
Right, and then you can play your Pokemon Go.
I could. While I can switch OSs and play my Pokemon Go, as Nate would so like me to say. Wendy, it looks like you're switching kind of your hardware on your 3D printer, though, with something that I already thought you had on there, but I guess I was wrong.
Well, you missed the last time that we were all together because, you had games.
You probably fell asleep.
Didn't have time for us.
I'm going to give it to Nate. It's probably the latter.
But last time we got together, I was talking about the fact that I did have my new board connected, and I was trying to get it to run on an old computer system using Ubuntu server. And so I had taken some of the tips that I'd gotten from Nate and I'd gotten from Bill, and I tried to use them, and even completely shutting down the firewall, I could not get a connection on that system. So I was like, fine, whatever. And I went back to using the Pi 4 for the system. So that's what's running Clipper overall and connecting to this 3D printer. Now, I had been using Fluid for a long time, and in my, whatever, like that plan is out the window, I decided to go ahead and test Mainsail. And in some ways, I like Mainsail better. Now, Mainsail and Fluid, which is what I was using before, is that front end in which you're interacting with the printer, you're changing settings, you're homing, whatever, in that like. And some of the things that I like about Mainsail over Fluid, the height map, which is your map across your printer bed. I like that one more in the way that you can kind of change things. My biggest frustration with that is you can set different profiles for it, which is a bonus. But if you're just trying to get that base one figured out, it can be a little bit frustrating because you're like, why isn't it running? Oh, yeah, I didn't click go ahead and use the default profile. So positive and negative there. The dashboard on it, for the most part, looks pretty clean. You can rearrange it a little bit like you can do with Fluid as well. I did do some custom macros for this, so it will go ahead and every single time it prints, it goes ahead and lays down that base height map. So it's got a new one every single time when it goes to lay down a print. You can't do that if you have to manually do that. It is one of those things where I've got a BL Touch so it can make those changes. But on this one, the tool head and the extruder are on completely different panels, whereas on Fluid, it's all inside one panel. So it's kind of nice to be able to control those individually, especially when I'm loading and unloading filament. So it is working. It has done several prints at this point, which I will talk about later in the show. But just so you know, The Ubuntu server did not work out. I'm not entirely sure why, but I do think it's potentially a conflict with versions. This is one of those cases where I think the Ubuntu server was a little too new. And so there was just conflicts there between Clipper and the server itself. But now it's running fine. I have the MOSFET board on it. I should knock on all the wood, as I have not had a bed fuse blow, and it's been running for hours in the last 2 weeks since I have talked to you last. So definite bonus there. Making progress. It's running. I would still love a different board. I did think about putting my Z-axis on different pins instead of using the AB for the Z. And you lose an extruder with this one. But at this point, it's running. So I should at least be happy with the fact that it's running and prints have finished successfully.
Yeah, that's kind of the key there. If your 3D printer actually does the 3D printing successfully, win, win, win. Absolutely. Because sometimes when you're printing something and it gets all kinds of goofy, or something hops off the print bed, or fill-in problem here, makes you want to throw the 3D printer through a window,
through a wall or something like that. Yeah, there. I will talk about some other prints that I've been working on later. But as a side note to that, I've been trying to do a print for my husband, and yesterday, as it was running, we lost power. And one thing I don't have set up yet is for it to pick back up where it left off. So that one got scrapped. I started it again this morning, and it wasn't very far into it, and the power flickered, and it stopped. And I just need to put a PSU on it.
So I have you mean a UPS or a PSU?
That's what I meant. No,
okay,
UPS. Yeah,
the PSU that I have, I've got, if I have power flickers, it can take like I want to say it's like a second or two that it can sustain that and keep going. And the Raspberry Pi is powered from the PSU also, so it doesn't get disrupted either. So
see, and the Raspberry Pi right now is being run from the wall, and where that's running Clipper, then it would still shut everything down. Yeah.
I changed how the power routing. I actually split it off and have Raspberry Pi. Everything's powered off of the same PSU.
I think I remember you talking about that, and I would love your solutions on that again, because it would be nice for a future project, because I do want to take my power supply, the main board that it's running on, the Raspberry Pi 4, and the MOSFET board, and put them into one individual container. So that's kind of the next thing on the CAD list to do. And in that situation, I would really love to be able to flip one power switch instead of two, where right now that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm having to turn on and off the Pi by itself and flipping the switch for the main board, which is, of course, also powering everything else, the heat bed, the extruder, everything. So if that was just one switch, that would be awesome.
Okay. I'm putting it in the show notes, so you can. There's all my notes.
Okay, I will definitely check that out, and I will put it in the show notes in case anybody else is interested. Now, even though Bill's not here, we still have some updates on servers. Is this for work, for home, or for both, Nate?
It's for both. So let me just a little back for those that did not know or hearing this for the first time, and if you heard this already and you're already bored of it, cool. So I got I set up a server at home. Where it is right now, I have 32 terabytes of storage, and then I have 192 gig of RAM. I have the DIMMs for 208. I think it's 288 gigs, but it keeps when I add more RAM, it becomes less RAM. So I don't know what's going on. Something weird.
Oh,
yeah, and so I think there might be some bad sockets in there. Maybe I got to clean them. I don't know.
Okay.
It's probably needs to be cleaned. I just haven't had time to do it, and it's one of those things. I'm not even pushing it right now, and I'm running several virtual machines on it as we speak, just to play around with things. So that said, the whole exercise of building out this server, all the struggles I went through doing this has been one great for me in my learning, my own personal technology journey, as it were, and it has translated directly into helping out my employer in setting up a server there. So a little backstory. Well, actually, so to finish, I have on my home server. It's now, mind you, most of my computers are named after different transformers. So like, my framework, I call it Ironhide because it's pretty cool.
Shock.
And then I have anyway. And then my main server, the boss server of them all, is Optimus.
Optimus Prime, yes. Okay.
Yes, but I just Optimus. and then my NAS, my backup is kind of like my assistant too. The backup for my main server.
Is that
it's
Bumblebee?
Magnus. No, it's actually Magnus. It's an Ultra Magnus. So I didn't do Bumblebee because that's. Listen, I have others too. Like, okay, so my son's framework, because it's the exact same mold, as it were, is Ratchet, because in the original Gen 1 toys, which he knew this and I didn't know this, and I grew up with Transformers, and he didn't grow up with Gen 1 Transformers. He grew up with, the more modern stuff. But he knew that, actually, I think it's probably because of a YouTuber by the name of Balt Matrix, who he likes to watch the Balt Matrix review toys and everything else. So anyway, I don't know if Balt Matrix did or somebody else, but I think it might be him. He, great YouTube channel. If you like Transformers, like the toys, his reviews are great, and he's a fun watch. So anyway, maybe he should be part of Tux Digital. I could say he's a Tux Digital show, but he's not. Anyway, he's an independent content creator. The Ratchet, because it's also framework, his computer Ratchet. He would call it Ratchet because it's the same mold, the frame, as mine, and since the Gen 1 Ironhide and Ratchet were the same mold, just different paint on it. And we have different skins on our framework. So
nice.
Anyway,
very, very nice.
So that was a little side tangent. To keep the conversation somewhat on topic. Anyway,
hey, I think Transformers fits in here just fine.
I think so too. How can you not like Optimus Prime? So
exactly,
Optimus is used as my, I test things. I have an idea. I want to test it, kind of figure things out. That's basically my play server to try and just understand how to do these things. So what I did for a project came down the pike, and originally the plan was in my head, we're just going to utilize the existing production servers, on the OT side instead of the IT side, for managing this new thing that they're building. So I bumped up the amount of storage on that, through a storage area network, so that it would have just, tons and tons of storage. And so the engineer said, I don't feel good about this for X, Y, and Z reasons. There are valid reasons. So I said, well, I guess we're going to have to have a different server. And then the president of the company says, I want to keep this as a separate business unit. So separate systems is what I'd prefer it to have. And so I explained to him that we don't have anything else on the rack. And he says, well, I don't have a budget. Can you figure something out? Like, okay. And so talking to the engineer in the Texas plant, he told me that we have some stuff on the shelves, and he gave me what the specs were. And so they were, he gave me the model. He gave me the specs. But it was it's a HP ProLiant DL8 380p Gen 8. So it's about a 10, 12-year-old server. And come to find out, these are actually the original servers that were used after they had a fire in the when they're building the building. There's like the server room.
Wow.
Part of the server room where the servers were after they were set up. Basically, there was a fire in there. Not because of the servers, because of somebody made a big boo-boo doing something else. So anyway, so these are the very quick replacements. They got them for cheap, put them in place. Very under-spec machines. So each of these servers only had one CPU in it, and then between them had 8 gig of RAM. Oh no, between the two of them had 16 gig of RAM. So that's not enough. Anyway, so what I did was I ordered new CPUs, which arrived after I left. So those are sitting there waiting for next time I go to Texas. 256 gig of RAM, 8 new drives that are 1.2 terabytes each. They are hard disk drives. They are spinning Rust. So if I lose points for that, I'm okay. And so I set them up with RAID 5. It gave me around 8 terabytes of storage, with it. And then I got the RAM. It's basically I re-thermal pasted everything, kind of went through, cleaned. Well, actually, the engineer already cleaned it basically, but went through, just kind of redid the thermal pasting of it, which, by the way, very clever heat sink methods on there. I really like it. And so everything worked great. I installed, take a guess what operating system I installed on there.
OpenSUSE?
Yes. How did you guess? So anyway.
Oh, I don't know.
So
I installed
Arch.
No, I wouldn't. I'm not. I haven't. I don't have a. I've not been hit in the head that hard. So I installed, a variant of OpenSUSE, one of the distributions from OpenSUSE, and I put Cockpit on there like I have at home, where I did a lot of my testing. And Cockpit is it's like Proxmox, but for like the Fedora. You can get it for like Fedora and OpenSUSE, Tumbleweed, and Leap, and Micro OS, I guess. I put that on there, got Cockpit going, and then so this thing has like 6 NICs on it, and I configured it so they're in different VLANs where they had to be. Configured the VLANs, got everything so where it's supposed to be. I thought it was going to be the problem because I tested at home, setting up a Windows Server 2022 at home, and then making sure I connected to the domain and everything else. So for a while I had something at home connecting to work, but don't tell the IT manager that.
Yeah, I won't tell him that.
So I set up. So I set up, it was like my test bed there. I got everything working in Texas. Got set up these VMs. Understood how the proper way of bridging the virtual network to the actual network, so that it draws its IP address from the DHCP server, or if you want to statically assign it, so it actually works on the network and everything else. So through this process, it took me 3 days basically to go from beginning to end because I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I knew like 80% of it, but the last 20% was kind of figuring it out. And also, setting up the hardware, a lot of variables there. So anyway, long story, not quite as long. I got everything going. Because there was no budget, because you're going to spend somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000 for all this stuff for a new piece of hardware, maybe more, maybe less. I did it for about $1,200, so I saved the company a lot of money. These machines, this machine actually has more, has more storage and processing power and RAM that is needed for this project. And I got it. I delivered it. It works great. I have one thing I really need to figure out, and that's how to properly migrate, because it uses KVM as the virtualizer. How to properly migrate from one Cockpit host to another. So I set up another Cockpit host in the other plant in Michigan. I'd like to be able to just migrate the virtual machines back and forth if necessary. It's not going to be necessary, but I just want to be able to do that. I followed the instructions on how to do that, but apparently I'm missing a step or something. So it's going to be a Cubical article at some point in time when I really truly understand the steps necessary, because there's something missing in the directions in the documentation, or reading is fundamental and I'm missing something. Like I'm not seeing it. The interface is great. It's a super clean interface. It's obviously it's not the Cadillac of hypervisors that VMware would provide, or even like the higher end offerings from SUSE and Red Hat. But Cockpit, if for like home virtualization, if you want to have a cluster of servers and be able to theoretically move stuff back and forth, whatever, with common storage, you can do all that with Fedora or OpenSUSE or whatever. And also you can use Proxmox. From my viewpoint, is nothing more than, it's the same thing with just different window dressings, essentially, maybe some different option sets. But Cockpit also can do containers as well. So if you want to run like it uses Podman. So if you want to run like a container of like Jellyfin or some other thing, you can do that. In fact, that's what I'm playing with at home right now, is I'm trying to understand Docker containers, whatever. But apparently, again, I'm missing something in the directions there, because I can't seem to be able to access. Like, it's supposed to be like forwarding. It's supposed to forward the address to the virtual address for Docker to a port on the host, and it's not working right. I don't know. I'm missing something, obviously, but I'm learning that Docker is not as simple as they make it out to be, like on things like Linux Unplugged. I tell you what, it's just not. Maybe because I just didn't grow up with Docker. I don't know. But it's, you got to build a Docker Compose file and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, yeah, but that doesn't really tell me anything. And there's a lot of confusion in there. So anyway.
Yeah, and it's not something I've ever played with, but I think it's something that Bill's played with a lot. So he might know how to make that work.
Yeah, I'll have to bug him. But I'll get it. Just a matter of time. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, obviously. I mean, Matt will attest to that, and remind me every day. So, but once I do get it, then I will, say, Matt, I know something you don't know. Just the one thing, but whatever. So, anyway, great success. Playing with stuff in your home lab does translate directly into doing stuff at work, and I love it.
That's good.
And,
yeah.
No, it's been fun and lots of fun, and I highly recommend playing with that sort of stuff. And if you can get a hold of some old server equipment too, and figure out how to do upgrades on those, that's another tricky thing too. Understanding how picky servers are about like memory placement and like the same memory for everything. And it's like it doesn't. Like a home computer, you can throw like a 16 gig and a 32 gig of DIMM, SODIMM, whatever.
Yeah, as long as you're putting them in the proper channels, you're good. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to be in the proper channels. Just put them wherever, and a home system will just use it.
It'll boot. It doesn't mean that it's running correctly. So, I mean, it's still better off if you're putting them in the right channels. But yes, it'll still boot.
But with a server, you got to make sure everything is like symmetric and correct, and there's everything in the right channel and in the right order. The way you have to stack memory is just
different.
It's different, and they're very picky, and you put one thing just not right, and it screams at you and gives you all these errors, and like, Jiminy Christmas, can you just calm down? Anyway.
No, Matt cannot calm down. He does not know how.
Nope.
No, Matt, and I understand you're going to be so uncalm. You're going to tell me about another game of the week?
Finally. I mean, it's been forever since we've had a game of the week.
Has he had, like, when's the last time he's given us a game? It's been like a couple of months, hasn't it?
It hasn't been that long.
At least a month.
96 was the last one I was on, so.
Okay.
I don't even.
So that was the last game of the week.
Okay.
No, Nate,
and we're on 98.
You're stuck in.
No, I think I'm stuck in 98 because I got Windows 98 Second Edition running on my server in the basement too. Just because.
What he doesn't tell anybody is he actually secretly has an edition called Windows ME running.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't have that one, but maybe I should download it from the archive.org or something.
Yeah, before they get sued out of existence.
Google's like backing them now, so maybe it'll be okay. And also, maybe. I'll run one of the virtual desktops on my system here. I'll put Windows 3.1.1, just leave it like if I'm at work or something, just put a Windows 3.1.1, just a desktop.
You just want to confuse the heck out of people, don't you?
Wouldn't it be fun? I think it'd be a fun prank to the people who are less comfortable with their computers, just to like run DOSBox full screen with Windows 3.1.1 sitting on top of it, just to see what happens.
See what they do. Yeah.
You don't even need to do that. Just literally open the terminal for any Linux distribution and leave that. There you go.
PowerShell command prompt.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're running Windows at work, not running. I haven't graduated to Linux yet. Anyway, before I so rudely interrupted you, you had a game of the month.
Game of the month, game of the week, whatever you want to call it. Yes. So this game is actually a prequel to a game that came out before it. This game is called Daymare 1994 Sandcastle. It is very much a callback to kind of the older Resident Evil style games, more probably Resident Evil 5 time frame. Resident Evil 4 is what it's going for. Has a bunch of different mechanics that kind of give it its own flavor, as opposed to just, essentially Resident Evil zombies. They're still zombies, but there's different ways of like how you have to kill them and that kind of stuff. So it's got a for as bad as the ending of the show was, kind of Game of Thrones kind of vibe to like, you don't kill them exactly as easy. There's specific ways you have to kill your character.
So it's less The Walking Dead kills and more like Zombieland 2.
So the gist of it is basically if you kill the body, they soul transfer, quote unquote, and that's probably about the best way to describe it, into another body and animate that body. So you have to kill the soul.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So the way you do that is the play mechanic is you freeze them, and then you essentially destroy them because they are stuck in that one frame of body. So
Okay. So not only are you killing zombies, but you're an exorcist at the same time.
essentially, yeah, there's really no good way to explain the like actual overall mechanic for it, but it's
Interesting, though.
campy.
Yeah.
It's campy action, suspense style video game. The
Definitely
reason
a
I'm
horror
actually-
style for sure. That's
Yeah,
easy to
but-
see from the images.
but we're heading into October, so it makes kind of sense to recommend kind of a horror-y style game.
Yes.
Why is
that? Halloween and all that stuff,
Oh, that's
Mr.
right. I keep thinking about that
Mr.
holiday.
Yeah, because the only one you live for is the one with all the bright green and, well, in your case, just green, I'm assuming.
Well, I mean, if you were
that's St.
closer,
Patrick's Day.
Nate, we've got a local theater group who's putting on the Addams Family. So if you were closer, you could just come with us on the robotics team and come see it, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
a fun one for this time of year.
Or Rocky Horror Picture Show that people
Yes.
go to see.
Mhm.
The hop, a skip,
or
and a jump to the left or the right. I can't remember
Yeah.
which is.
he doesn't
It
even
was a
remember.
Commodore 64 game.
But anyway, the whole point was because we're coming up on Halloween and all that stuff. This game is on GOG. It is DRM free in that regard, so that's why I'm recommending it. The price is not super high. I think it's $30 if I remember correctly off the top of my head.
Yep.
And I think for what you get, it is actually fairly reasonably priced, especially seeing how this is the developer's second game. You can get the first game for super cheap right now too, but it is.
Cool.
This game is a massive improvement over the first game in a bunch of different ways. But if you want to play the first game, it's kind of a middle of the road kind of game.
Okay.
As far as, so it's like a 5 out of 10. Like, it's not terrible. It's not great. But you can get that for I think it's like $3 right now. It's super cheap. So
Wow.
yeah. So if you're a Resident Evil fan or those style of games, that's kind of who this is for. Definitely a rated M game because horror games tend to be that. Other than that, I don't really have much else to say about it. So
Not a game for me. This doesn't appeal to me at all. But I'm surprised yet again. This seems to be outside of your style of game.
so wait for that.
So recently, I was perusing through the Amazon Prime games and come across a thumbnail that I was like, "Oh, that looks like a Matt game."
Yep. Well,
Just off the top of my head, I was like, "Oh, that looks like a Matt game."
out of curiosity, Wendy, which one of the many free games that Amazon has been putting
Okay,
out that was that?
Let me pull it up. Let me.
It's been a while
launch
since
some heroic
looked at the
here.
I haven't looked at the Amazon stuff since I actually redeemed.
Because
all the
I
stuff
am
this
logged into the store on Heroic Launcher, and that's going to be definitely the fastest way to get to it to see which game it is. And I don't honestly know if it is a game you'd play, but just the art style was like,
There's the art
that's
style.
a Mac game. I don't know that I can even pronounce it.
Is it like Honkai?
Etern Knights. Etern Knights.
Actually, no. I have played Etern Knights.
Okay.
of course you have.
I'm right.
But
I read the description and I was like, not for me. And I'm not against the art style in general, but read the description and I was like, I'm out.
No, honestly, what that game is very it's not going to mean anything to most people, but it's a Persona style game. So there's what you'd call in your downtime elements. So like your character development and all that kind of stuff is like in between your action pieces and all that stuff, or your gameplay. That's kind of what that game really is. It's like what they would call social elements to it. But I'm not a big social guy.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
As far as that particular game, though, actually that game is actually good if you like action combat.
Okay.
Because that's the style of the game. I like that game not because of the art style. Actually, I really generally dislike the art style of that game. What I do like
is it because it's like a little bit softer on that? It looks a little bit more like dreamlike. It's hazy. It's not necessarily like
a lot
vibrant
of the
color and line.
I think it's the lighting.
Yeah.
I'm all for cyberpunky neons and all that stuff. the game's just too dark as far as like the environment that you run through. It is super
Really?
dark.
Because it
and
looks like more on the pastel side from the thumbnail. So
you end up spending a lot of time running around in corridors and that kind of stuff. So
okay.
you don't have a lot of outside environments as much. There is a haze to it later in the game, but generically there's just not. Your sword is basically the light that you find through the most of the game. So it's kind of off-putting.
How do you
if you do have Amazon Prime and want a couple new Lego games, if you don't have them, the Lego version of the Lord of the Rings game and Lego version of The Hobbit is on there for free right now. So snag them.
Yes.
Why they got them.
I'm looking for, because I have Amazon Prime. So I see Prime Video, Prime Music,
Prime
Echo
Gaming.
and Alexa. Where is the Prime Gaming?
To be fair, right now, some of the shows that we're watching most regularly are on Amazon Prime, and that would be the UK version of Top Gear, their spin-off version called...
No. Get it right, Wendy. There's only one version of Top Gear.
This is true.
The
American one isn't any good.
US version. I myself liked the US version, and specifically the episode, if you've seen it, you know, and Adam like throws his car off the cliff and he's like, it flew! You're like, oh buddy, it didn't. It makes me laugh every single time still. So, I mean, I've seen them both. I like them both. I do love the guys from the UK. Like I said, and then their spin-off show, I can't remember, Grand Tour is great. And then Jeremy's Farming. Like, those are shows that we watch around here, right? Like, I love them. Absolutely love them. So.
I agree. The Clarkson Farm, I think is what it's called.
Yes, exactly.
There's a line I use in there when he's selling eggs. He says, well, they're not free range, but they're well exercised. And so I use that to describe my chickens because they're not quite free range, but they are well exercised. So
the problem is I'm like not this person that's like big on English and making sure you're constantly getting it right. But my husband started adding ing to things that doesn't need ing. Like they use tractoring in that TV show. And I'm like, no, there's no such thing as tractoring or sheeping. We don't do that. We are Americans.
So Wendy, out of curiosity, how are you going to do with regional dialects?
Oh my goodness. It's definitely interesting.
I was going to say, how are you going to deal with those regional dialects that add things that aren't there?
Well, I was wondering because I know Canadians will add S's that don't belong, and it's one of my favorite episodes of Letterkenny is the sushis and sushimis. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
So yes.
So it's kind of like if you're a New Englander, and I'll use it more broadly. There is no R. Everything's H.
Okay.
So everywhere that ends with it car is ka. So it's like, as an example, let's get to the car and let's go to the parking lot. Like that is literally chowder, like clam chowder is chowder. Like,
yeah, it's kind of fun when Bill breaks into his Northeastern accent too. Yes.
So, so you're gonna have to bleep this part out, Wendy. So while I'm looking at various games that developers have upgraded by being prequels, you are upgrading other things, though, Wendy. It was up here.
Yes, I have talked about my super ugly car, which my husband has told me to stop calling it ugly, or he'll get me a real. Yes, or he'll get me a real ugly car. So I'm talking about the Mercury Grand Marquis. And one of the things I have hated about this vehicle, other than the fact that I find it ugly, is the cup holders in it are absolutely tiny. So unless it's as small as a can, you know, your regular soda pop can at the base, it doesn't fit in. So my water bottle does not fit, and then it becomes a hazard as I try to tuck it somewhere in the middle so I can still reach it, and then it tries to roll under my feet. So I started CAD project in order to make one cup holder adapter for my side. I made one that worked pretty well and was looking at it. I was like, I could make one that joins together and then both cup holders could have a larger adapter, plus have the space in the middle for my change and my earbud case and all of that good stuff. So I'd had that mostly
I like
made,
it
and
already.
my daughter, yes, I'd had that mostly made, and my daughter goes, Mom, that could use a shelf coming off the front of it for extra holder of crap. And I'm like, I love it. So she took my CAD file, modified it, and we came up with this thing right here. So this fits the Mercury Grand Marquis. One thing I've noticed is that it's just a little bit too wide on the bottom to fully keep seated. And then when she catted this, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a gap here, the way that she had built it. And this was a little bit too thin. So we've got another version that's ready to go of this one. I went through probably 6 or 8 versions of the single. But once I had the single, it was pretty easy to turn this into a double. And then she added this. So we've got another version of this ready to go. But that takes the cup holder in the front of it, makes it usable for a full-size nice water bottle. Plus, you've got all kinds of crap to stick in it. Change holder, my earbuds, all of that good stuff can go in this.
I like it.
And while she was at it, there are no, and I mean no, cup holders in the back of that car. Kind of a problem when you're packing kids around, and sometimes they have their flavored waters or their coffees, and they're potentially just rolling around the back of the car. So she built this one on her own. So this slides over that center armrest that can be up and down in the car. If you put it up, then you can have 3 people in the back seat. If you put it down, then you've got 2 people in an armrest. So this actually slides over the armrest, and there's the 2 cup holders on top of it. It works pretty well. She said the biggest complaint with this one, and she's also got a second version of this ready to go, is the cup holders aren't quite big enough. So while her water bottle fits, which is definitely narrower at the base, my son's water bottle doesn't, which is a lot like mine. It's pretty chunky. So she's got another version of this one ready to go. And now the Mercury has cup holders, thanks to learning
fantastic.
how to CAD and having a 3D printer.
That's fantastic. That's one of the greatest things about the 3D printer. You can and CAD, you can visualize an idea, and then all you have to do is translate the idea in your head to a virtual object on the screen, and then you take that virtual object and you gotta just send it over to the 3D printer, and the 3D printer just spits it out over a long period of time, and there you go.
Depending on the object,
Using like ABS or what material are you using?
Oh, PETG.
Okay, that's what I figured.
So that way, it'll still hold up over the course of the summer, but it still has some flex to it. So that's good. I don't currently have any ABS, and from what I understand, it can be, and it can be a little bit difficult to print with. So I did some of my base versions out of PLA just to get them done real fast. It was in the machine. It wasn't going to stay in there. I just wanted to make sure things were fitting. And with the original versions, I don't think I've got any offhand. But with some of the regional versions, I centered the base and what was actually holding the cup together. And I ran into the problem with the way that car is designed. This little decorative ring around the stereo and the panel that's controlling your temperatures and stuff sticks out too far, so it was causing problems. So that's why, if you notice in this version, the back of it, they're actually flush. So that avoids the issue of that area that sticks out from the radio or whatever. That's no longer a problem because it's just 1-to-1 and there's enough gap there to deal with that. So that's some of the iterations that we went through with the single. Mm-hmm.
In my mind, I was thinking it was the reverse. You had the tray going forward, but you actually have the tray coming backward. Okay.
No, the tray is going forward. So
it is. We said the radio.
So this is the back. This is the back.
Okay.
So the radio would be here, and that stupid decorative lip that sticks out way too far. This, where they're flush here prevents that from being an issue. And then this is that extra tray that you can just throw whatever you want. On my phone, I've got the magnetic socket on it so that I can pop this off. I can throw it in that little tray, then just stick this to my magnetic dash piece, and it's easy access. So when I get to robotics or whatever, I can put it back on and I'm good to go. It's pretty handy. I'm kind of glad she came up with that idea. The problem is I would love to do upgrades on this 3D printer, but I don't want to do upgrades on it while I'm currently needing it to print, especially as we're getting into robotics season. Because, yeah, while we're doing some fun stuff for us, my daughter is using CAD as part of her school curriculum, building awesome things like this that make our life easier. My kids that are in robotics, especially my older son and my younger daughter, are going to be starting to CAD things that need to be printed for the robot. So while the team does have 3D printers, it's nice knowing that we've got one at home. There's other team members that have one at home. There's the ones that belong to the team. So I really don't want mine shut down. And I was watching some video on YouTube, of course, related to 3D printer. And he had an ad, which he also uses them, so these Soval 3D printers. So it's like, I'll check it out. And they have a really, really nice line of open source 3D printers. And the prices for them are absolutely amazing. They're way better than any other pre-built I've found. And the reason why I'm attracted to the SV04 is because it still has a really nice build size. So we're 300 by 300 by 400 millimeters. It has the auto leveling, and it has 2 independent print heads, which is one thing that I absolutely want. And the best part about this is if I go ahead and pick this one up, so right now for the US, it's on sale for $300 for that build size and 2 print heads, which is absolutely fantastic. And then the kids can do things. So we do have, as I talked about before, that nylon with carbon fiber. It's fantastic. It's super strong. It's super light. It's great for making things for the robot. The downside is if you have to print supports, getting those supports off can be a ripping pain in the butt. The advantage of having a printer like this is that we could go ahead and print the carbon fiber, print a water-soluble support filament, and then just be able to clean it off. Then I can go ahead and upgrade my Ender 5 Plus some more and not having to worry about not having a printer at all.
So that water-soluble stuff, like, should you get that? I don't know what the timetable is on that, but I got to know how well that works, like how well does that dissolve and everything else, because that sounds like the cat's pajamas right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially where your kids might potentially be printing stuff for their robot as well. I plan to pick up this printer within the next month. I'm hoping it's still on the sale. If not, it goes up $40. So not a huge thing. But I would like to be picking up this printer within the next month. So an interesting thing about this printer is only one side has the bed leveler. So you go ahead and zero out the one that has your sensor, and then you kind of get your second one to match. So it definitely will take some tweaking, and I've watched some videos on that, in order to get both of those extruders printing properly. But once you have it nailed, then it should be a pretty smooth print, and it's already running Clipper software. So I can already integrate that into my main cell that I have. That's not a problem. So this one's nice. It has a screen on it, but I can also control it from the existing platform that I've got. Pretty simple. And at the same time, know that I have a working printer so that some of the upgrades that I want to do for the Ender 5 Plus, like getting it on linear rails, I can do. And if it takes me a little longer, if I run into issues, it's okay, because I still have a printer that can get our education purposes done.
That's cool, because now actually I'm curious to know, can you was it one interface and they're two separate printers, or is it like does it combine them? I think because they both have Clipper, or are they two
Mainsail
different
is
IP
just
addresses?
the front interface. Yeah, so each would have its own IP address. And say if I go ahead and load up Mainsail, the first thing that pops up is select a printer. So I can select my Ender 5 Plus. I can add a printer and give it a new IP address name and then be able to select that one. So I can actually have two printers running at the same time and make changes, whatever, from the same interface with Mainsail or Fluid.
Okay.
It's pretty nice. So
It does
you
sound
have
nice.
Clipper running on the main board. You install firmware on that one that is specific for the board, and it depends on the board. So you'll go ahead and select, okay, this is the CPU that it's using, give it those details, flash that firmware to the board, and then on the Raspberry Pi, so kind of like you're using the Octoprint, but the Raspberry Pi also has Clipper installed. It runs the server for Mainsail or Clipper. And all of the main processing power is happening on that Raspberry Pi. It then sends that information to the main board. So the main board is not doing any of the processing. You get to use a much faster, better CPU to do all of that. The instructions are just being run from the main board to the machine. So it uses two separate boards to control that. And it does mean that you can have some faster, smoother prints. I like the fact that I don't have to reflash it like you have to with Marlin. And that's probably one of my bigger complaints with Marlin is if, say, you're building a machine, you're upgrading a machine, you're changing something, you have to compile that firmware every time. Whereas with Clipper, I can just go into my printer config file, make a change, and reboot.
That sounds like way more advanced than what I'm doing. Like, and I have the Merlin or Marlin, whatever board.
Yeah.
And then Octoprint is controlling it. And it is a serial interface, basically, over USB.
Yeah.
Sending the commands to it. But it's still your method sounds way more advanced than what I'm dealing with. So
I know I've seen people complain that they're like, Clipper isn't the end all be all. And no, it's not. It's not the end all be all, but I like the solution. And while it does take some work to get it up and going, I personally wouldn't want to run another printer with Marlin. I'm 100% into Clipper. But that's just me.
You've graduated far beyond my capabilities there.
Well, I mean, that's just the joy of playing with additional boards. And if I am able to upgrade this one, I would kind of like to turn it into a Core XY so that the bed stays stable at the bottom. And one of the ones that Sovol has 4 different Z-axis motors. And so it can literally level itself on the Z-axis. Super flippin' cool. Love it. But that does require Clipper.
Very cool. But I got to know all the details and the steppers. Make sure you have the right.
Make sure you have the right. That can be some of the fun, especially as Clipper upgrades. It's one of the things that I ran into when I set up on this new board. There'd been a Clipper upgrade compared to my old printer config file. And so not only did you need to change, the stepper pins and all of that fun stuff, but go to start it. Okay, this is errored. This thing doesn't work anymore. So you have to change this parameter, or this particular one can't be used for this thing. That's also, just an absolute blast. The joy of messing with the software side. But once it's up and running, if you're willing to put in the work, I'm quite happy with it.
So how close do you think you are to being able to build your own 3D printer at this point?
I think I could right now. The biggest thing that's holding me back is the cost in parts.
Okay.
Deciding exactly what I want and then getting the parts, because right now what Sovol is offering is cheaper than what I could build it for.
Yeah. So then at that point, unless you want to build a printer that's so big you could print like your own full-size Matt head, or a bust of Matt.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah, which, could be in the works. We might be able to build him in parts Parts and pieces.
Yeah, but just like his like annoyed, like when he's annoyed look, like right now, that's exactly what I'd want to have printed. Like looking at me when I wake up in the morning, I see it on my desk, like giving me that look of shame,
That glare.
Yeah, like following me, with the bell, shame, shame,
Shame. Shame. Nate, there's already other people that do that for you.
It's true. You're not wrong.
Hardware is kind of a theme for this one. Matt has been playing with the phone. Well, I guess it's a hardware-software combo. Matt was playing with the phone and the software that he put on it. Nate, your server for both work and home. And you're not done with that hardware-software combo, as you now are the proud owner of a used HP tablet.
Yes. So, one of the joys of
Working in
my
IT.
job, working in IT, is I have to get rid of things. Like there's just something I have to do, and I got to be careful how I get rid of some things. But anyway, one of the things we had like basically sitting in the back, and we're not going to use it again for numerous reasons. Was these I have two of them. These HP Pro Tablet, HP Pro Tablet 408, very underpowered. It's an x86 based tablet, and I really wanted to have OpenSUSE on it because, Tumbleweed specifically, because, well, I have an almost unhealthy obsession with the project and all the cool things they do. But what's neat about it is, I should say, one of the problems with Plasma has been there's been no default virtual keyboard, and that's been such an annoyance for me. I looked for virtual keyboards and I couldn't find one. So this last week on Linux Saloon, somebody suggested a particular on-screen keyboard called a Maliit, Maliit is what it's called. So I searched for that. It was already in the Tumbleweed repositories. So I just sudo zipper install Maliit, or Maliit. I don't know, Maliit. How would you pronounce that? Maliit. Anyway, so
you're doing a great job. Yeah, whatever you said.
We'll stick with that. So it goes in. It becomes in the system settings as a virtual keyboard. You select that, and what's really neat about it is, it works like you would expect. So the keyboard only works in Wayland too, by the way. The keyboard will pop up and resize the windows above, like you would have on another mobile device, whatever. And then you can do your little typing, and you're good to go. And it pretty much works like you would expect. You hold down the R to get the 4 to pop up or whatever. And It's great. So I don't have things like arrow keys and tabs. So terminal work is a little bit more, clunky because you don't have, your shortcuts.
Right.
But, it's got emojis, which apparently I learned today that no man should ever use an emoji. So I guess I should stop. I don't like emojis. Anyway, it works great. I really like it, and I don't really have a need to do anything that great with it. Most of the time, it's not even to watch a YouTube video. Which, by the way, this thing isn't powerful enough to push for a YouTube video. Although I need to try Chrome or Chromium or something like that because I'm using Firefox, and maybe it's a Firefox issue that the DRM on it may not be as efficient. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Maybe.
Anyway, but I have a nice little case for it, and I just kind of keep it. It uses, unfortunately, micro USB to charge. It does have a like a micro HDMI out on it, but I don't use it for an extended period of time. It just pretty much I want to look at a document or something along those lines, check something, do it like I have an idea in my head, and so I just want to quickly search for something. Although it's not very quickly searching for anything, and that's it. And so it's kind of nice just to have that tablet. It's got a fairly ruggedized case. So if I drop it, it falls off. If I fall asleep like reading a book or something, it's no big deal.
Nice.
And I'm very happy about that because once I finally got Tumbleweed installed on here, it was just not fun to use because of the key on-screen keyboard was just not good. I tried it's like Onboard or something like that, the GNOME one, but it would lose focus and it just wasn't a good experience. And so I just sort of shelved it until Saturday. And now I'm really excited that I got a silly little Linux tablet. Finally, after 8 years of trying, 7 years, to get a Linux tablet just a bog standard Linux desktop environment on here that would give me an on-screen keyboard. Finally, I got that. So
what was the process like of getting Tumbleweed installed on there?
it was a pain in the tuchus, but not too bad. So this is 64-bit, and I had to get like an OTG cable. So I got one that was split between had like two like a micro USB to two USB ports essentially, and then I plugged in a wireless keyboard that has like what was that, the K400 plus Logitech that every Raspberry Pi toting tech enthusiast has out there with the touchpad and everything. And then on the other one I plugged in the thumb drive to install it. I was able to select it, through the boot process. You can interrupt the boot process like any other x86 based machine, and I installed it. And I had to. There's something I had to do to get it to install properly. I got another one that's running Windows 8, which isn't a great experience. But so I'll probably do it again. I did take notes as I did this. I just don't have them handy, and I probably should publish something on it on cubical8.com. But it does have a headphone jack, which you can't watch movies anyway, so whatever. But anyway, so once I got it installed, it was like any other Linux distribution. The screen is actually oriented, vertically. So as it boots up, it looks kind of goofy. And then as far as like, the like grub is stretched. But but it does work well. The way Wayland handles the screens is pretty nice. Also, it does automatically rotate, but it's 90 degrees off when it rotates, so I can't do that, and I haven't found a fix for that yet. So
interesting.
It's very funny. But you can have it so it automatically rotates. Orientation, if I make it automatic, and then only when in tablet mode, and hit apply. So now here, so if I hold it vertically, it's sideways. If I hold it sideways, it goes vertical. It works great. I don't know what's going on here. Something's obviously not calibrated correctly. It seems like there's got to be. I can set
somewhere
that. But I don't know.
Somewhere in the gyro, it's backwards. Yeah.
Yeah, something is not detecting it correctly, and this is hilarious because it's just absolutely hilarious. So if I just put it manual and I put it so that it's correct or whatever, then it works just fine. Except now it's not going back to manual. Anyway, I messed it up. I'll have to figure it out later. Anyway, it's a great little tablet. I like it. It's pretty cool. Everybody agrees. And so you should, if you get one of these things, install Linux on it, and I think you'll be happy. Now it's your turn to toss in your 2 cents on today's topics. Hit the discourse forum, drop us a line under the video, or on the contact form by visiting tuxdigital.com/contact. If you'd like to hang out with us on our preferred social media, see the links at the bottom of the show description. Find other great shows like Sudo Show, Destination Linux, and Linux Saloon, and more at tuxdigital.com. Show off your love for your favorite podcasts and shows by visiting the Tux Digital merch store. Grab yourself some awesome swag like the Gamer-centric I Paused My Game to Be Here shirt. Unless you're Matt, you don't pause the game for anybody. Or join hashtag Team Wendy with some sinister Wendy swag. As always,
Wendy's
thank you
evil.
for joining us. Yeah, you always say that, but is that
because it's true?
Because she smiles and she laughs, and you just don't like happiness. Is that why you say she's
no?
evil?
Because
anyway.
she brought out evil Jill, and she knows what I mean when I say that.
I did not.
I think that's blasphemy.
I think that's the truth because Wendy, how long ago was it you were on DL?
It's been a few weeks. Yeah.
So
because Michael was back on DL before he had internet.
So it's just like everything else. It takes a while to seep in. So the evilness is now transferred from you. You still have it over to Jill.
If you haven't listened to the latest episode of DL, and it probably won't be the latest episode by the time this comes out, so I'll drop the link in the show notes. Jill did call Ryan a noob, and that is something that I would say, but she wasn't being evil. She was just being honest.
It's true. It's not evil. Honesty is not evil. Matt. As always,
I already know it.
We thank you for joining us. I'm not evil. I live my life in rose-colored glasses. We'll be back next time with another awesome episode of Linux Out Loud. Until then, keep the banter friendly, the conversation somewhat on topic, and have fun doing it.
His rose-colored glasses are 2000.
They might be green-colored glasses, too.
Layers.